Hello and welcome to the Toffee Blues. This is Paul. I'm here with Owen this evening. We're here to talk about that fiasco that happened last night, as of this recording, on Monday, when Everton were utterly destroyed by Brighton at Goodison Park. Final score was 4-1, leaving Frank Lampard perilously close to the sack. If I said that right, he's still the Everton manager as of this recording, approximately at 8 o'clock on Tuesday evening, then 24 hours later. Whether he'll still be the manager for the next game on Friday in the FA Cup, it's still up in the air at the moment. The club's entire future is up in the air right now, and fans have just got their heads in their hands, really, just not knowing what to do and terrified over what is just around the corner. Me and Owen are just going to maybe dissect the game a little bit and just have a general chat about what happens and what happened on the night and what we think happens from here or what we'd like to see happen. Owen, mate, first off, other than the results, are you doing all right? I've not spoken for a few weeks.
Yeah, I'm okay other than that.
Oh, you're
Um,
okay other than that, yeah.
yeah, apart from Everton, I'm doing fine. What about you?
Not too bad, not too bad, mate. Things are changing at the moment for the better. I'm hoping at least something in life's going right, other than my football team. But were you at the game, mate? I mean, I was personally. I
Yeah,
was hello, Gladys. Were you?
I've attended every home game this season, so yeah,
Yeah, uh,
so I've had a very good view of
yeah.
Everton this season, and I've got a pretty damning indictment of them.
So come on, mate. Let's just get into it. What did you make of first off the start of the game, and what did you make of as things unfolded in the first half, and then that just crazy few minutes in the second half, and it just seemed like Everton's players just, for me, gave up. That's the way I describe it. But what was your
Yeah,
feeling of how the game?
we'll take it chronologically, and I saw the team on my way to the game, and I physically couldn't believe my eyes that we'd gone back to this 4-3-3 that I don't think worked at all. Because even people point to the Palace game a few months ago, that was more 4-2-3-1 for me. Iwobi was a lot closer to Calvert-Lewin in that game than he has been since. And other than that, we've just been terrible playing it. And I came with no expectations to this game as soon as I saw that team. And then, yeah, Dwight McNeil, the right, he's a pretty, I'm going to be nice and say average footballer off the left. Off the right, he's just completely hideous because it like forces him to do. I don't know. It forces
Being
him
on
to
the right,
do.
it sorry, it takes away the one thing that he's not horrendous at, which is getting the
Yeah,
ball on
which
his
is
left foot, isn't it?
he's fairly okay at sort of ambling down the line and putting a cross in. But other than that, he's we've seen him now, haven't we? Enough of him. He came in. I tried to defend him for a fair
I
few
did,
weeks.
yeah. Just give him the benefit of the doubt because some fans were on him straight away, weren't they? And I don't
Yeah,
necessarily like to see that. But
I thought he,
at what point do you have to admit that they're right?
yeah, and yeah, I've seen enough now, and I've got to be honest, and this will probably surprise a lot of people listening tonight that he has been totally horrific this season. I still don't think he's been anywhere near as horrific as he was last season because I had pretty good eyes on him last season as well, and he was just as bad then. He certainly lost something in the last couple of years, but he was a decent footballer when he first came on the scene. He wasn't quick, but he was a lot more effective. But no, I weren't happy with him coming back into the team. I haven't seen him against Wolves. Tom Davis comes in. It was either him or Decore, and I think it wouldn't have sent good messages out to put Decore in. I haven't seen him sat on the ball at half time against Man City. Um,
Is it
and then what did he do?
sorry, mate? Was it a good message to send Tom Davis out though when he's got 6 months left on his deal and
No, and he said he
the way
doesn't
it
want.
looked, the way yeah, basically yeah, as you said, he's already come out and said that he's not necessarily desperate to be offered a new one, is he? Not
No,
that
but
anyone wants him to be offered a new one, but
it
you've
was
said he
always going to
can't.
be one of the two, though. So it's a flip of a coin. It really doesn't matter. I still go back to the point. You keep. I've been a defender of Decore in the past, and I do think he did well a few years back in his first year. Tom Davis, I've never really been sure of, but we've had Gomez and whatever. But Yeah, it just begs the question. And I know he was on good wages, but given the sort of the quality of midfielder we got now, I still persist. Rather than a Wobie's purple patch, I still personally think Alan is better than all of them. And
I do.
technically, off the ball, I think he's better than all of them that we've brought in, including Garner Gay, who I think has been a pretty tragic signing. I don't think Anana is quite up to it yet. And then the rest of them don't seem to look interested. So I still haven't understood the process behind selling Alan. But other than that, the midfield is what you expect. Then we go back to the back four, which individually you look at them all and think, yeah, I can see it working. Mikalenko is a back to basics left back, and he should just be expected to do that. And I don't know why he's constantly crossing the halfway line because it just doesn't come natural to him in the final third. Patterson's been off him massively the past month, and I like the two centre backs and Pickford. He keeps us in, I think, more than he costs us, but even he doesn't know what a clean sheet looks like. And then Dominic Calvert-Lewin up front too is way back to fitness, and Gray, I think you've got to play because he's got a goal in him. But other than that, and so that's the team. But then we come out and we engage them quite high, which I thought was a, a gamble we had to take because I didn't see how else we were going to score other than forcing them to make a mistake and playing out the back. But we stopped doing it after about 15 minutes, and then I'll let you talk about the sort of a bit of the remainder of the game, where it just fell apart in the most. I said to someone last night that there's a period of that game, it might have been about 25 minutes, that if it ever gets like put out in the public again, they'll have to put an age rating on it. It was just that terrible.
Yeah, yeah. There's honestly, there's. I'll just go into it. The start of the game, I liked, to be honest, the first 10 minutes. I thought it looked like we had the right attitude because we were pressing Brighton. The fans were up for it, for all the stick the fans get. Fans were coming into this game more than happy to kind of get behind the players and not quick to jump on anyone. And it seemed like the players responded to that. The first, I mean, yeah, we'll go into what I think about certain players and the team in a minute, but I was surprised to see us get rid of the five at the back. I thought there was no reason to do that when it worked against City. And we knew that this was going to be a game where we were probably going to be on the back foot for large periods of it, considering that Brighton are such a tardy possession team. But just the opening 10, 15 minutes of the game, I thought we had the right attitude and we had a couple of chances that got the crowd up. We went close, didn't he? We had the Brighton goalie was down shooting. We were shooting towards the Gladders in the first half. And I thought an early goal here will do us the world of good. It will get the Gladders going. And when the Gladders get going, then the other stands around the place sort of slowly pick up as well. So I just thought if we can take the lead here, because I know we've took the lead in other games like United and like Wolves, but they were down at the Park End. Now I've never really sat in the Park End for much. I've always had a season ticket in all Gladders, but I thought if we can get the first goal this time down at the Gladders the street end and we can get the Gladders involved, then it will just sort of seep into the rest of the stadium, and if it seeps into the fans around sitting around watching, it should seep onto the pitch and raise the players' confidences a little bit. And it's just the first goal was I don't want to say a sucker punch because it's not like it came out of nothing. I've just thought Brighton moved the ball around really well. They waited for a gap. Patterson needs to do better, but Dwight McNeil left him completely exposed, didn't he? So when you're a fullback, you should and you make the slightest mistake and it results in a goal, and you're getting left on your own. I think they've got the right to point the finger at the winger who's nowhere on the scene and say, "Well, it's not all down to me. You should be here to help me out here." So if I do make the odd split second mistake, it's not an automatic. Oh my God, they're in.
Especially as we were so deep as well. We were pretty much set into our defensive shape, and we still got done from one. But it weren't like it was a counter attacking. To say there were 4 or 5 of them off the pitch, and we just didn't get back. We were all back, and there was no one near them.
Because they cut through us like a hot knife through butter, and that just should not be happening because they're not Man City, they're not Pete Barcelona. Brighton, for as well as they did and as impressive as they are, They're a good football team. They're not a great football team. They shouldn't be going.
I think a properly fit, motivated, organised Everton could have won the game because they made a lot of risks at the back, and I think if you'd have carried on what we were doing, there's no reason why.
I thought they looked rocky. I thought they looked quite rocky at the back as well. I mean, their goalie and their centre back pair and didn't have the greatest communication. There was a few times when they kind of got lucky, where just the odd a bounce went against us, or a through ball just wasn't on for us, and that was all that was needed for us to get in on goal. When we had the ball in their final third, I thought we're not doing an awful lot wrong here. Is basically what I'm saying. We were somewhat unlucky to go behind. And when we did go behind, it's not like the groans came out automatically straight away and everyone started getting on players back. Fans started cheering, saying, all right, that's a bad thing that's happened, but it's still early on in the game. The players have played well up until that moment, or what we deem as well, as in they weren't terrible. But it looked like the players were interested and the fans were still interested. The fans didn't turn after that first goal. And anyone who wants to blame the fans for what happened the other night has got a leg to stand on. But the first goal went in, and then I compared it to the person sat next to me to a bit of a boxing match after that. If you watch boxing, it just felt like they had us on the end of like a long jab the rest of the game. They were just leaning back and we were just sort of clumsily lunging forward with paymakers like that, and they were just leaning back, dodging easily, keeping us on the end of the jab. We couldn't really get near them, but it wasn't like we were getting smacked, beaten up badly, and you think, oh my God. I mean, they had one chance where it went off the post shortly afterwards where they could have been and should have been 2-0 up. But after that, I thought the last 20 minutes of the half played out still pretty even. I think Lampard was right when he said the first half, other than that little 5-minute spell where they took the lead and they were unlucky not to go 2-0 up. There was nothing really in the first half. It was just two teams that one team that was coached very well, but had a bit of communication problem at the back. And another team in Everton who were trying to press, but not everyone again was communicating. So Owen and Dominic Calvert-Lewin were trying to press, and then Dwight McNeil wouldn't, and Gray wouldn't, and then Tom Davies would get the ball and try little first time flicks because he was the only player who was trying first time passes, and it seemed like no one was expecting it. The amount of times that the players were trying to link up with the teammates and the ball, and whoever the intended target was of the pass just was not expecting the ball to come to them. Iwobi knocked the ball out of play a few times. I think Patterson tried it a couple of times. He put crosses in and then there was no one anywhere near it. It was just really, really frustrating. And then we get to half time and you think, right, a draw is still on for us here. If we can get a goal in the first half, then that'll lift everyone, definitely. And we'll see if a second goal's in it for us. If it's not in it for us, then a draw wouldn't be a bad result, really, considering the Brighton are a much better team than Wolves are, as far as I'm concerned. But then it just seemed like the players came out with no intensity and no desire. And as far as I'm concerned, a lot of them threw the towel in during that little messy.
Completely agree.
Yeah, during that period where we just completely capitulated and everyone was doing the old Ashley Williams thing where they just defend absolutely horrendously. And then what do? They just put their heads up, the shirts over their heads and start going, oh no, blah, blah. I can't believe that's happened. And everyone in the stands like, I can believe it's happened because you're all terrible footballers who can't do your job. So why don't you take responsibility instead of feeling sorry for yourselves? And the third goal was calamitous. Was it Tarkowski who ended up on the floor, like lying on his stomach? Yeah, it wasn't even like he was tackled. He ended up like trying to block the shot or the pass. I think he was on the 6 yard, the D at the edge of the box. He ended up flat on his stomach. I don't know how he ended up off his feet. And the fourth goal was
a comedy of errors.
Yeah, and then the fourth goal was a Gay who just put a back pass, put the lad straight through on goal without even looking.
It was just like I've quite never seen anything like it before because we put in a terrible free kick and we just sort of like managed to lose the ball. Then it comes back to Ghana, and I don't know what he's thinking, but there's no one within a mile of him, and then he just rolls on to
that's a scared footballer. That's I don't want the ball. And just someone else have it. He's not even looking where he's hitting it. That's a player who just absolutely does not want the ball and is just getting rid of it in any means where he knows how. He's just literally booting the ball into space because he doesn't want it. And that's Garda Gay, player who has not been here the last few years. He's been to Paris Saint-Germain. He's trained with the best players in the world. He's won some trophies. He should be one of the most experienced, wiser heads in an old lion in this. Who should be in the changing room who should be able to rally the players behind them when he senses that everyone's losing their heads and doesn't know what to do. He should be the one who's kind of rallying everybody.
Yeah.
And for him to be losing his head, to be capitulating that badly, then you can't expect the likes of Patterson or Dwight McNeil or Damari Gray, players who haven't got anywhere near the experience levels that he's got or played at the high level that he has before he came back to the club. I'm not surprised that players like that were just completely folded and given up when they're seeing a colleague like that doing it. But getting away from the goals, we'll get on to what the reaction was of the fans. The sack the board chant started coming up, which I enthusiastically joined in with, and so did most. I don't know where it was in the rest of the game, but it seemed like a lot of the Gladders, 70-80% of the Gladders was joining in, sack the board, and Billy John Gunn, Bill Kenwright, the fella who won't let Alan Stubbs into Goodison Park anymore because he tells the truth about him. He couldn't wait to get out of his seat. He left on the second goal and never re-emerged, doing his classic thing of when things are going well, you can't get rid of him. His face is everywhere. When things are going badly, he runs into hiding and goes into his bunker, and no doubt has his defenders come out for him, which they have been doing today. But just what was yours? Where were you sat, mate? What was the sentiment around you? Were fans getting toxic and turning? Were people just in silence?
Upper Gladys Street.
So
and
what was it?
You know the hallmarks of a club that's doing terribly and that's so rotten, where you hear about 50 different people pointing their ire at about 50 different people. It weren't just all at one person or one individual or one collective. It was at everyone. You're all having a go at.
Yeah, and I heard people having a go at Calvert-Lewin. I heard people having a go at Pickford. I heard people having a go at Kenwright. And they all should take some responsibility. But as you said, some people were directing their ire at the wrong people in the wrong order. It's like, it's not Jordan Pickford's fault that the squad is absolutely terrible. It's not Calvert-Lewin's fault that they sold Richarlison and didn't replace him. It's not Tarkowski's fault, as stupid as he's just been for those goals, that the director of football is getting chased out of the club, and because Benitez 12 months before demanded it. It's not any individual player's fault that the team's in the mess that it is. They're all part of the problem. But yeah, basically, so the ground just turned badly from where I was. The atmosphere went really, really top bad. Like I thought there was going to be people running on the pitch, not like any great amounts. I just thought you'd get the odd drunken Wally, like one or two people running on, because we've seen it the last few years. I thought it would go in savoury, like stewards would have to start throwing people out, and I don't know if that happened. I didn't see it, but I saw people walking out en masse.
I think it turned to apathy last night, and a bit of anger. Apathy and anger.
That's no good. Apathy won't get us out of this either.
No.
I don't blame anyone who does feel apathy, because I'm feeling a large dose of it now myself. I've very close to just completely given up, but I don't know.
And to move on,
there's no real point talking about the last half an hour when Brighton were just playing a testimonial. Really, I thought they felt sorry for us.
You're taking the Mickey, weren't it?
Yeah, and their fans were taking the Mickey, doing the Ole chants and all that, and I don't care about the penalty at the end. And I feel sorry for the likes of Ellis Sims and Isaac Price and Seamus Coleman, who were basically thrown on into a hopeless situation like that, especially the two young lads and Ellis Sims, who was out on loan. He must have been sat watching those goals go in as he was warming up, thinking, what have they dragged me back here for? I was doing all right at Sunderland. Why have I had to come back and be part of this house burning down? Do you know what I mean? So I felt really bad for them, but
there's no point talking about that half an hour.
No, there's not.
No one to learn nothing from that.
Yeah. So
I know you were the last time we spoke. I think that was the Bournemouth game, or just after the Bournemouth game in the international.
Was it the after the League Cup game, and then we were previewing the Premier League game?
I think it might have been. Yeah. You were still fairly Lampard in. Have you changed your mind on that?
I'm not. I wouldn't even say back then. I wouldn't have said I was necessarily Lampard in. I just didn't see I didn't see anyone who would come in and make any tangible difference to us, and I still don't. Sean Dyche is a much better coach than Frank Lampard is. David Moyes, and because he's getting linked as well, because it looks like he's going to get sacked any day from West Ham. If he came back, he's a much better coach than David Moyes is. Whether you believe the likes of Duncan Ferguson and Wayne Rooney would come in and be a better coach than he would, or Roberto Martinez, I don't think any of those three would do any better than Frank. If anything, any of those three would do worse. Ferguson, Rooney, or Martinez, if they come in, it's like an interim, something like that.
Yeah,
But no matter who comes in, yeah, if Frank, he's not gone as of yet, as of this record, but if he goes tomorrow or after the Tonkin we're going to get against United on Friday, I just don't see the situations at all salvageable. I think even if a manager comes in and he coaches the team and he grinds out some results and we somehow again just survive by a point or two or on goal difference by the end of the season, we are just circling the drain. We are Sunderland. We are getting away with it when we shouldn't be getting away with it, and there'll come a time when we absolutely are not going to get away with it anymore. It could be this season, it could be next season. It could be this season, could be next season, but this club is only going one way and it's down, and no manager's fixing the problems, even if they come in and give us a short-term bounce.
Agreed. I agree that there's a lot of issues, and you won't hear me defending anyone on the Everton board because I think they're all pathetic and I think they're all shallow. I think the verge onto Trumpian stuff, some of them, it's like stuff on the Donald Trump playbook.
I think the people who refuse to have a go at them are honestly Trumpian. Yeah, they can't give you people who are, I wouldn't say pro board, but they are anti-board fans. They don't like the fans who are trying to organise.
The anti, the anti like disruption. They just like it. They just like they just don't like fans who. They don't want fans. They don't like fans who are sticking their heads up above the parapet and trying to force through a change. I mean, I'm at the point now where I'm just feeling apathy as well for the most part. I don't blame any supporter who just divorces themselves now and just says, you know what, forget football, forget Everton, I can't be bothered. I know it's something that the vast majority of people will never do, but it would be a lot better for your mental health if you will yourself to do it somehow, because Everton don't deserve to have your headspace the way they're carrying on. The people at the club, as you've just said, who are making the decisions, they're just despicable people. They're not like they're just making honest mistakes. Do you know what I mean? I was willing to believe that for the first couple of years when Micheri was throwing money around and making stupid signings like whoever it was, like Sigurdsson and Davy Klassen. Yeah, signings that didn't work out. In hindsight, they proved to be stupid. At the time, everyone was kind of up for it, but at this point, I just do believe there are certain people at the club who would rather the club stay terrible and in the state that it is to keep their jobs and to keep their power than to step aside or to give up some power to help the club progress and go forwards. I really do believe that. It's been a boys' club, a train set for years now, and certain supporters have tried pointing this out and have been shouted down. And I know the chants got going last night, and I know that everyone's up in arms on social media. And you know the temperature is red hot at the moment, but I don't think anything's going to change. The same happy clappers will be angry for 5 minutes, but they won't turn their anger into anything tangible. They won't actually do anything because they have the chance. I also don't think, with the best will in the world, that there's a realistic prospect of getting rid of them in the short term. And as cruel as as predictable as it sounds, I think Everton have only got two possibilities to sail. A, get a goal scorer, and Danny Ings has been linked at loan. Maybe he'll get a few goals, I don't know. And B, change the manager. Because
even if they come about, mate. Sorry, even if they come about, it goes back to what I said before.
Mightn't be enough.
It might not be enough, and if it is, all it does is delay the inevitable until next season. That's what Swansea and Sunderland were doing. They had 9 lives, famously. Everyone said they were the Black Cats, and they ran out of cat lives. They had Allardyce who came in and saved them. They had goal scorer into Defoe. Yeah, Dick had the cat before that. I think they had Paolo Di Canio at one point who came in, and he got a couple of he got a couple of results to start with, and those points that he picked up during his first few weeks ended up being the difference to them staying up that year. They had a couple of narrow escapes. Swansea as well. They had that Guidelin, didn't they? And then they had Paul Clement, who's here now, and I don't know what he does because I thought the likes of him and Ashley Cole would, for all of Lampard's deficiencies, I thought his backroom staff looked pretty good, and they would help coach the team. But this team looks like I don't know what they do all week long.
On the pitch, I think that on the pitch purely, if Frank Lampard didn't replace Benitez, he'd have been gone months ago. And I mean, because Benitez was so toxic and so unpopular that it gave breathing space to anyone who replaced him. And if you purely look at Frank Lampard's record, it's near Mike Walker territory. And Mike Walker's like comically known as the worst manager we've ever had. I genuinely don't think Frank Lampard's far away from this because I see the team every week and there's no plan, there's no strategy to win a game. He had a blueprint against Man City which was thrown together to sort of cultivate a spirit to try and dog a point, and we did it through a wonder goal and a bit of resilience. He throws out the window and tries to go toe to toe with a much better football team, as much as that sounds ridiculous at the moment in Brighton. And we just get he's got a big ego. I'm not a big fan of his blaming the fans or he's
just a desperate man, mate. That's all it is. He's a desperate man in a desperate situation, and when managers
and he's also desperate because he isn't getting another job.
Exactly. Yeah, he's just a desperate man in a desperate situation, and desperate men will just blame anyone else but themselves if they think it will help their situation. So when Lampard goes, he won't go with any ill will for me. He won't take up any more of my headspace. I won't think about him again. I don't think.
No.
But you mentioned Mike Walker. A lot of the people who were saying, ex-players in the media who I've read today saying, oh, well, we need to stick with Frank. We need to let him make more signings. We need to stop sacking managers and get behind him. A lot of these same players are the same people who played under Mike Walker in the early 90s and were saying what a horrible manager he was and how toxic the dressing room was and how...
I don't think it's quite that. I just think he's a rubbish manager. And he just does not effectively play for everything.
The point was the same people who are advocating that we stick with this rubbish manager whose record is just as bad as Mike Walker, who was a rubbish manager who they played under, and they were, Mike Walker wasn't spared by them. Every time Mike Walker gets mentioned by some of these ex-players who were in the media, who've got jobs in the media for us now, who played under him in the 90s, they all, they'll slag off Mike Walker all day, when his record is not too dissimilar to Frank Lampard, the person who they're saying we should all back and stick with.
Yeah.
That's my point I'm raising, so I just don't get it.
The board is the big issue, and it isn't going to fundamentally change until they're gone.
It's too late.
And another thing, we're not going to get Thomas Tuchel or Pochettino. None of them would think twice about joining this. So you're left with the ramblings of you said before, Rooney, Ferguson, Martinez.
One point I want to raise before we go, and some people won't like this because we'll wrap this up in the next few minutes. A lot of the blame for our situation goes on the certain sections of the fan base who enabled this board. You were told over a decade ago now by the likes of the Blue Union and the People's Group, who pointed all this out about Ken Knight. This was pre-Macheri even. All this was pointed out that Everton are ran like a boys' club. It's a man's personal train set. We don't have anyone in positions of power who fundamentally know what to do and how to make a football club successful, how to replace good players with other good players, how to manage tough situations, how to plan for the future in case, bad things happen. Like when a manager gets off and leaves us, like Ancelotti does, there's no succession plan. Fans pointed this all out years ago, and when it had a bit of a comeback, hasn't it, last season when the 27 years campaign tried to organise that walkout against Arsenal. There've been fans who've been banging this drum about this board and certain people on it for years, and every time the majority of people either just completely ignore them and won't listen to what they've got to say, or either abuse them and call them names, call them just, why can't you just support the club? Or they're more interested in slagging off players over what their fashion sense is. If I hear one more idiot in the space having a go at Calvert-Lewin because he don't like the fact that he wears skirts on his personal time, then do you know what I mean? Those type of supporters who just
just completely.
They're just vile. They're just vile. In some cases, they're just bigots, or they're just complete morons who've got no idea of what the actual situation is, what the problems really are. those people, you deserve this, Everton. Honestly, you deserve it. The fans who won't get off their arse and do anything, or even worse than that, have abused the fans who have got off their arse and tried, perhaps naively at times. Not saying everyone who's took part in these kind of protests over the years were always definitely right. A lot of the ideas people have had to try and like protest or to demonstrate how unhappy they are, they haven't always been right. Some certain people have had stupid ideas or have said stupid things that have turned people off. But the fans who just outright abuse people who want better for this club and called them names or shouted abuse at them as they're walking out the stadium doing the protest, or in some cases just won't even listen to what they've got to say. They're just like Donald Trump supporters. Honestly, like they can't argue, they can't make a good point to counter what you're saying. They just don't like the people who are trying to push through what they think is a good thing. Do you know what I mean? They're not pro-board, these supporters who I'm having a go at. They're just anti-board supporters. Do you know what I mean? Anyone who's anti-board just gets a dog's life from these other fans who just
I don't understand.
Don't want any change. They don't want any change at all. They don't want any change at all. You can't explain the mentality because they're just either, like I said, just very miserable, unhappy people, or they're just very clueless people, or a mix of both.
Is it just I don't know, a disdain of other people getting the limelight and changing everything for the better, and that they don't want any part of that? And
it's just change. There's people. People
by nature. It's a bit weird, isn't it?
People by nature.
Everyone.
People by nature
be the best they can.
Yeah, people by nature. Ranting a bit here. People by nature don't like change, but change a lot of the time can be very good. How can you not like change in this sense when the change is to try and make Everton from a joke shit club into a club that actually is taken seriously and is at least trying to be good and putting its best foot forward? I'm not saying that if Mishiri sells up tomorrow, or Kenwright or Denise Barrett-Baxendale resign tomorrow, that Everton will suddenly be right with the world. Everton could still end up going down. Everton could still get nowhere long term. Everton could still cause us all this strife and stress. But at least you'd be able to say the club is putting its best foot forward. At least they are trying. They're doing the right things, and you have to just hope that it pays off for you. But the club's not even doing that, and I can't believe that people are getting angry at the fans who are unhappy that the club are doing the wrong things.
Yeah, and look, a lot of the fans who even are trying to change it, it's emotional, and they want everything.
Yeah, not all of them are right. I don't like some people involved in the 27 campaign. I don't have a lot of time for certain people who are on the spaces who are advocating anti-board. But I agree with the idea that the club has to change, and the first change that has to happen is the top, which is the board. And I just don't get anyone who is abusing these people or will just absolutely not listen to anything they say, as if the evidence isn't there in front of you. They act like people who are pointing out that the club is selling off its best players, not replacing them, that the club has got just employing idiots who've got no track record of success. But acting like all this is not actual fact, as if it's disputable. When the evidence is there in front of you, it's like people who deny the election in America. It's like, what do you have to do to prove to these people that what you're saying is correct and what they believe is just absolutely pulled out of their arse? It's just completely made up fantasy.
Yeah, you
can't argue with people who are just. Do you know what I mean? They always say you can't convince a stupid person or an ignorant person to not be stupid or ignorant. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not saying everyone who doesn't like these campaigns is stupid or ignorant. I just don't get the people who are abusing these people for wanting change are stupid or ignorant. And when I say abusing, I mean screaming at them when they're trying to do protests, or calling them names on Twitter, or going into spaces to start swearing at them. You don't have to be all in on these protests, but
exactly.
I don't get what the attitude is.
I've spoke to you in the past and raised a few of my worries about some of the specific protests, that they were a bit exclusive, and I still stand by that. But the fundamental principle of getting change is the fundamental before my personal preference how a protest should be run. But I think a lot of people now should. I think there was a lot of it last season. We'll be okay because there's Richarlison or wherever. There's very little here now, and in a lot of the cases, a lot of these people champion this manager as well, who is rubbish. So there's not really anywhere else for them to go now. They're kind of stuck, and they're kind of like run out of answers. So I think a lot of people will just protest, because I think that's the only option left for people.
I don't see it personally. I don't see people.
I don't know how you can justify anything else though, Paul, because we're in the situation where we're completely rubbish. I've just been waste the whole summer again.
And this goes back to what I said before. There are certain people who are in the fan base or at the club themselves who would rather we just be rubbish as long as it means that their life doesn't have to change.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They don't have to change the way they act in their jobs if they're working at the club, or they don't have to change their attitudes about certain players. We could go on all night, mate, but we'll wrap it up there. We've kind of had our rants and our say. Fact of the matter is, I think Everton not a doom ship at this point. I pray I'm wrong.
I think it could be salvageable with a different manager.
I think it could be salvaged this season. I think it could be salvaged this season, but it's not going to be salvaged long term unless the board are forced out or they step away. But I don't see them stepping away, and I don't see them being forced out because the same fans who've just enabled them for years, I can't see them suddenly doing the right thing. But yeah. We'll leave it there. People, if you disagree with us, then leave your comments down below. We're all for having a debate, just as long as no one gets nasty or personal in terms of name calling. I know I've just name called a little bit, but that's what happens when you get worked up. Drop us a like if you would, please, and a subscription, and let us know your feedback in your comments or on social media. But yeah, it just seems like Everton are in a very bad place at the moment, and the Everton fan base is in a very bad place, and it's playing havoc with our mental health. And all we've got at this point is blind hope, sadly. So if you cross all your fingers and you say a rosary, or you say a prayer, whatever, let's just hope that Everton Football Club in a couple of weeks' time is a better place than what it is currently, because it just doesn't feel like we can get any lower. So please subscribe. Thanks very much for that. See you soon.